Good afternoon and welcome to SmartMusic's webinar on planning your year with units. My name is Michaela Graham, Senior Event Specialist for Make Music, and I will be running everything in the background for our session today. Before we get started, I would like to give you all a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have any questions for our presenter throughout the session, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A box. We will not be answering any questions from the chat box, just so it'll be a little easier for us to keep track. We will only be answering questions that are put directly in that Q&A box, and we will address some of the questions at the end of the presentation. At the very end of the presentation, we will share a link to those presentation slides shown today, as well as a link to the certificate of attendance for this webinar. Please note that certificate of attendance will only be available for live attendees and not for the replay. Without further ado, I would like to introduce the presenter for our session today. Dr. Giovanna Cruz has worked for Make Music since 2014, designing, building, implementing, delivering, and evaluating online and in-person training to numerous school districts around the country. In her role as Manager Customer Success, she provides the voice of customer feedback, advises product development, and oversees the efforts to ensure our customers find value in our products by keeping them engaged and happy through education and outreach efforts. Giovanna collaborates with the marketing, sales, support, and events teams, and many times she also presents SmartMusic and Finale clinics at state and national music education conventions. But before joining Make Music, Giovanna accumulated over 10 years of experience as an orchestral and chamber musician, college and private studio teacher, and public school teacher, including the 7 years she taught orchestra in Austin, Texas. Giovanna holds a bachelor's of education and master's and doctoral degrees in music performance. We are so glad you're able to be with us today, Giovanna. I'm going to hand the presentation off to you, so let's get started.
Thank you, Michaela, and welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm delighted that you guys took an hour of your day today to join me in this webinar about creating units and using them to plan for your year. Also, thank you for all that information that you've provided about who you are, what you teach, where you come from, and what level you're teaching. I can see that the majority of you are band directors, followed very closely by orchestra and general music, then choir, and then other. And then the majority of you also teach middle school, but there's, you run the gamut. There's elementary, high school, college, and private lessons here, which is not unlike what I've seen in many other webinars and some of what I did myself when I was teaching. So today we're gonna talk about, first of all, the deliberate practice philosophy, which is what informs what we do at Make Music, and then also as music teachers in general. Then I'm going to quickly go into SmartMusic and do a very brief overview and explore some of the music that's in our catalog. A really brief overview of Compose and Sight Reading Builder and how you can create material in those two tools, how you create assignments, and then lastly, how you build those units, which is what is going to help you plan ahead during the year and then also for future years. So, we are really excited that we won this year or last year the Best Tools for Schools Award by SBO, and we feel like we came full circle because we also earned that award in 2014 with Classic SmartMusic. So earning it with a web-based makes us feel like we came full circle. All right, so to the deliberate practice model, that has 4 components. The first one is the teachers setting specific goals for the students, then providing the expert instruction. And we all know that normally you're in the classroom in front of your kids and you are able to walk around, give direct instructions, and make modifications, stop your rehearsal, walk around and whatnot. Now, if the majority of you are teaching online or in a hybrid model, and we're gonna have another poll about that in just a couple of minutes, you're still the expert, you're still providing that instruction. It's just a different medium in which you're doing it, right? So you need technology to help you deliver that remote instruction, but it's never going to take your place. The next step in the deliberate practice model is for the students, obviously, to put into practice what you have taught them and do that practice in a thoughtful and deliberate way. And then lastly, in order to improve, students need to get immediate feedback. And then again, in the classroom, you walk around, you make corrections, you give further instructions that will help students make modifications and changes so that they can improve. Far away is a little bit more challenging, but the technology can serve as that tool to bridge the gap and the distance. And in the case of SmartMusic, the program is going to provide students with computer-based feedback, and that is when they play along, they're going to be recorded, and the notes that they play will turn green, yellow, or red to indicate correct and incorrect pitches. So with that information in hand, plus the fact that they can click on the notes and see the fingerings and hear the pitches that they're supposed to be playing or singing, that's immediate feedback that can help them progress and make changes and improve. So right now we're going to launch a second poll. Michaela, if you can launch that one about where, how you're teaching this year. So let us know if you're teaching in your classroom, remotely, if it's a mix, and then are you currently using SmartMusic, or are you sort of in the consideration phase? All right, so it's looking good. It's about 80% of the vote has come in or so. And it looks like 62% of you or so are teaching remotely, entirely remotely. 31% are teaching in some sort of hybrid model, and then just about 7% are fully in the classroom. And then the large majority of you are using SmartMusic, 67%. 27% are not using it, but know what it is. 5% have used it before, but not this year. And then just a small percentage, 2%, are not using it and have not heard of it. So this will be sort of a discovery phase for you guys today. Okay, so now that we have that poll, I'm gonna do a brief overview, and then we're gonna open some content and explore. So what you see on screen right now is a screenshot of the environment in SmartMusic once you log in. And just for those of you, the few of you that don't know what it is, it's a web-based application, right? It runs on the Chrome browser on computers and Chromebooks. And if you're gonna use it on the iPad, it runs on the Safari browser. So after you log in on your browser for the first time, you're gonna see a screen like this center area. And I'm not sure if you can see my my cursor and my mouse moving, but if you can't, I'm just kind of going in circles around the big graphic that is in the middle of the screen. This area that has that graphic is just essentially telling you it's empty because you haven't done anything. It's the first time you come in, and it's pointing you to this plus sign. You can take some actions from there, like create a class and start uploading music. What you see on the right side is sort of your quick access to our library of content. So where it says Trans-Siberian Orchestra, that's a tile that rotates. It's sort of curated categories of music. Below that, you'll see my favorites, which is empty because you haven't added anything to it. And then further down, there are some music categories, all the categories of titles that we have available. Above the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, there's a search bar. You'll use that to search for music. And then even further up in the white area at the top, there are several icons. One that looks like a pitchfork that will pull a tuner in a separate tab. An icon that looks like a graduation cap. If you click on that, you'll be taken to our SmartMusic Academy, where you can learn more about how to use SmartMusic. And then I'm gonna skip the bell, that's notifications, but there aren't any currently in there. Then there's an icon that looks like a person. You can access your profile from there. A little question mark from where you can reach our help center. And then most importantly is the little square on the top right corner of your screen, which is next to the word home. And that little square gives you access to the navigation to all of the other parts of SmartMusic. So once you've started using SmartMusic and you have created some classes and uploaded some content, etc., your left side of the screen will start to fill up with these different cards. So at the very top of the screen, you're going to have cards for each one of the classes that you create. And then below those cards, you're going to have some recent assignment templates that you have created when you start sending assignments, music that you've uploaded, that music that you've uploaded and shared with others potentially, if that's something that you're interested in doing. And then if others are sharing music with you, you have easy access to it from here. Now, to the right, you are now seeing this expanded box with several different icons. This is your navigation to the other parts of SmartMusic. You can see a home icon, which is where we are, find music, which is where we're going to go next to explore the catalog. And then you have practice analysis, where you can see how much your students are practicing and what they're practicing. Units, which is where your templates are going to be stored and where we're going to dig deep today. A grade book, where you'll be able to access all of your students' assignments and their recordings. Class tools, which is where you set up grading calendar, grading scale, pin a method book, etc. Admin, which is where you manage your classes and your roster. Compose, which is the tool where you can upload or create music directly in the browser. Sight Reading Builder, which is a tool I'm going to show you in a little bit, where you can create unlimited numbers of customizable sight reading materials, also to satisfy the needs of your students. And then the Content Manager, which is where you manage all of that music that you upload or create. Okay, so in a closer view of that navigation menu, we're going to go to Find Music. So when you click on that icon right there, one of the places where you're going to get is on the search page of Find Music, which on the left side is going to have some filters that you can apply to discover the music, which is going to show up in a list form on the right side. As you click on those things, they're going to open up and expand, and then you can select an instrument and you can open up the music. So that was sort of the brief overview of the application in general. Now I'm gonna get into it, and I'm going to open some music and quickly show it to you. So here's my SmartMusic account. I'm gonna go to my icon here on the upper right. I'm gonna click on Find Music. There's an Explore section, and then here's my Search section. I'm at the very top of the screen. I clicked on Search, and here are my filters on the left side. So let's say that I wanna look at method books. I'm going to expand my categories, and then I'm gonna click on method books, and I see a list of method books. Over on the right side, I can see a count. There's 176 listed in there. And I can further filter these down by instrument. For example, if I just wanted to look at the band method books, I could choose, say, flute here. And so it's going to reduce my list to all of those method books that include flute as an instrument in there, obviously the band method books. If I was looking for string methods, I may want to use a filter here and include, say, the violin. And so now it's going to pull all this, the string books that include violin. There's a couple pages of them. And if I am, and that includes the Suzuki books, by the way. And if I am a choir teacher, for example, and I want to see what kind of the vocal method books there are available in SmartMusic, I could find voice here over on the left side, and I'm gonna say voice all, and it's going to pull all of the method books that are vocal method books. Another thing that I can do here to narrow down my search is just simply type the name of a method book I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for the book Sound Innovations, and it's going to pull up the Sound Innovations for Band and the Sound Innovations for Orchestra. I am a cellist, so I'm going to open up the orchestra book. And when I click on it, I am going to see the cover of the book, and then in the center of the screen, I see all of the lines of the method book, and I can scroll down, okay? The little heart here, if I click on any of these, it's going to add that line of the method book to my favorites list, so then I can quickly access it from my home screen. And if you wanted to add the entire method book to your favorites list, then you can come to this little heart right at the top of the list, and it'll favorite all of the numbers in there, okay? There's a title here, an exercise called Mi Ranchito, and if I want to find it, I can really quickly just type in the search by title, the words I'm looking for, Mi Ranchito, and there it is. I'm going to click on it, and then I want to open that part, and I'm a cellist, so it's going to default to cello, and here it is. And you're probably all familiar with how this works, right? So you have all the tracks in here, and you can play back the music, and if you click on the notes, you can see the fingerings, and you can hear the pitch. So this is an example of how you can open up a method book. I'm going to get out of this expanded view and just head back to my Find Music. Let's say I wanted to look for exercises instead, okay? So I could clear the search, clear the filters, and then go to exercises. And let's say that now I am looking for scales. And so that scale, I'm gonna go here to scales, and I'm going to select, I don't know if you guys are familiar with these, but we have whole notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, 1, 2, and 3 octaves. And there's all of the major scales, all 3 flavors of minor, and then there's pentatonic, whole tone, and chromatic scales, and diminished. So I'm gonna look for something simple because I see the majority of you are middle school teachers. So you're probably gonna start with the basics. Let's say that typically you'll do a 1 octave scale, but let's say it's your 7th graders, so they're already working on 2 octaves. And I can select the scale here and then also open the part. And for scales, and I'm not going too deep into the controls of the practice app because I did see that the large majority of you are currently using SmartMusic. So you probably already know about all of these menu items here at the top. And if you don't, you can go to SmartMusic Academy and check out our short videos there that explore all the different parts of SmartMusic. I just wanted to show you some examples. So under display here, obviously it's showing me C major, right, for cello. But let's say that I want to work on the D major scale because that other line from the method book I pulled before was actually in D major, and the piece that I'm working on with my orchestra is in D major as well. And I'm gonna eventually build a unit with that. So I go under display, and then there's a drop-down menu here at the top, and I can change that scale to D major, okay? And I see my notes here. And so I could say, okay, I do wanna work on the scales the way that they're displayed that satisfies my needs, and it's gonna satisfy my students. I know that those scales exist there. I could schedule an assignment directly from here, or I could do it from the previous page. So let me get out of full view one more time. I'm gonna open now a piece of large ensemble content. So let's say I'm looking for band and orchestra now, and I've cleared my search. I select band and orchestra. And now, again, pardon the bias for strings, but I'm a string player. This will work for whatever area you're in, okay? So let's say it's string orchestra. There's 1,593 titles. That's right at the top right. Now, there's a column below that says difficulty, and there's a visual for the difficulty level. So green is gonna be easy, orange is gonna be medium, and then red is gonna be difficult. If I'm browsing, I haven't decided yet what I'm gonna be working on with my students. Browsing through 1,500 titles is gonna be really time consuming because I'm gonna have to open every single one of them and listen, right? So that's realistically not possible. And you guys are probably already have an idea of what you wanna play with your students. So you could either search at the top to find the piece that you have in mind to see if we have it, or if you're not quite sure and you just want to narrow it down by level of difficulty, you could just go down to the bottom on the left side, click the difficulty filter, And then we said it's middle school, so let's say beginning and very easy, perhaps. So that narrows it down to 242. Maybe you want to browse all 242, maybe not. Let's say I'm looking for Beethoven's Ninth. Okay, so here's Beethoven's Ninth, and this is the one that I'm looking for by Hal Leonard. And I'm gonna click, it's already selected, it's only one movement, so I'm gonna click on open. And I'm going to open that part. And I can see the music on screen. I can go to the other instrument parts, as you can see below the playback control. So I could switch to the violin part, for example. And Beethoven's Ninth is in D major. So we had explored a line from a method book that is in D major. The D major scale, you could look at, you could do D major arpeggios as well to get your kids centered in the key. And then you can build a unit with all of these things. And that's where I'm going, okay? Now I'm going to play this back. I know I didn't play back any of the other examples, but for those of you who may not be familiar with SmartMusic, in the center of my screen, right above the sheet music, there are a couple of different controls. This green button is the playback button, and above this, there are some tracks that I can toggle on and off. Okay, so here's what this sounds like, and I'm going to toggle those controls on and off as we go. So now it's just my part. I'm turning off my part. I turned off the metronome. I can turn on subdivisions. So let's say that works for my middle school orchestra. And this is a piece that I want to program for them, and I've passed the music around, and they all have it in hand. And I want to do several things to get them working on it, okay? Now, it is possible that something you want to do, whether it is a piece of music or you have scales in a particular way. I've seen teachers say, you know, I don't like scales that repeat the top pitch. I just want them to go up and down, and the scales that we have maybe do repeat the top pitch, or maybe they want to go 1 and a 2 he and a 3 and a 4 he and a 1, you know, and maybe that's not the pattern that we have. We have a tool in SmartMusic called Compose, where you can write or import your own arrangements, your own exercises to make them look the way you want. So to get there, you would click on practice, or rather the navigation icon right at the top, and you would go to Compose. And then from Compose, you can create something real quick. If you select quick creation, it's just going to be a single line of a single staff line. So think of an exercise for one particular instrument, or you can create from a template where you would choose one of these predefined templates, or you could import music that you've created in other notation software. From that other notation software, you'd have to export it as a music XML file and then bring it in. So let's say that I want to create something directly in the browser from a template, and I'm going to make it a string orchestra warm up, or my D major scales. Okay, and I am gonna do it like this. I just want to do, let's say it's 4 measures actually, and I'm gonna click create a score. If I use one of these predefined scores, it's going to format the staves and the systems correctly, and it's going to do the right transpositions, etc. And then I can just grab my notes here and enter them. I can click them in. Well, that's not really a scale. But you can click them in, okay? You can use your cursor. So I'm going over to the upper left corner of my screen and grabbing this line. It's a cursor tool, and I'm gonna put it here. And then I can use the letters of my keyboard as a typewriter, okay? Let's make that a half note instead. So I'm gonna click here, the half note, and put the C there. And then I'm gonna click quarters again and go B, A, G, F, C, D, and make that another half note. C, maybe that's the way I want to work my scales. Then I can take this and copy, sorry, I gotta get rid of that cursor, copy all of this, and then I can drag it down to the second violins and to the violas and to the cellos and to the basses. And obviously that is way too high for cellos and basses. So I can go over to the left side. I'm in the bass line, and over to the left side, I'm going to click on transpose, and I'm going to go down a couple of octaves. And that was not enough yet. 2 more. Okay, so that's my D major scale for the basses. And then here's my D major scale for the cellos. I also won 1 octave down. Done. So now that looks right. And I have something I've created for my students that fits my needs exactly how I need them. I'm going to go over to the file menu and click save to my account. I can edit the name. It's going to take whatever I put up here, but I can edit it. And then save it, and it's going to go to my content manager. Okay. And from there, I can always then schedule it as an assignment. All right. So continue using Compose. Let me go back to here. Okay. We also have a tool called the Sight Reading Builder, which you can access by clicking the navigation icon first and then selecting the Sight Reading Builder icon. And what it does is it allows you to create unlimited sight reading customizable for your students. So this little video gives you an overview of how it works.
Every music educator wants their students to become strong, confident readers. The new SmartMusic includes the Sight Reading Builder. With it, teachers can quickly generate an infinite number of customized sight reading and sight singing exercises. To see it in action, go to the SmartMusic homepage, click on the navigation icon, and then select Sight Reading Builder. When specifying student instrumentation, you can choose solo instruments, pre-made ensembles, or create a custom ensemble either entirely from scratch or by editing an existing template. To get things started, we'll use an existing beginning band template. While of course you can specify tempo and duration parameters, you can also select from 10 difficulty levels. Done. Want a different example? Done. You can further customize sight reading exercises for your students by time or key signature, rhythmic patterns, instrument ranges, interval and rhythmic options, articulations and dynamics, and musicality options. Let's look at 2 of these areas, starting with rhythmic patterns. You can both create your own patterns and add or omit predefined patterns. If, for example, you omit whole notes, the generated music will automatically update, eliminating whole notes. For range, you can specify highest and lowest notes, as well as indicate specific pitches. Once you've fine-tuned your results, you can save your template for future use, save the score as a music XML file to open in Finale, SmartMusic Compose, or other notation programs, or simply assign the template to your class as you would any other SmartMusic assignment. Content you've created in Sight Reading Builder, as well as music you've made in SmartMusic's Compose, is always close by in the Content Manager. When students are strong readers, everything else comes more easily. Transform your students' musical futures with SmartMusic and the Sight Reading Builder.
Okay, so I've kind of shown you at the speed of light how to find some of the content in SmartMusic, how you could easily create something in Compose, and how you can create music in Sight Reading Builder. Now, everything that I've showed you, you can actually schedule as an assignment for your students. So I'm going to create an assignment from a method book I'm gonna do it from one of these exercises and perhaps from the large ensemble. And then I'm gonna pull one of the sight reading outlines that I created prior to this webinar, because you know, this is kind of like a cooking show where half of the stuff is already made so that we can fit it in an hour. And I'm gonna show you how you can build these assignments, okay? So this is a student account. That's not where I wanted to go. Here we go. So let's say that I want to actually schedule this D major scale I just created for my students, right? So if I'm still in Compose, I'm going to click the File menu. So this is at the top left of my screen, right next to the SmartMusic Word. And I have several icons here. The one furthest to the left is where I would create a brand new score. The cloud is so I can save it to my account. XML is so I can download this score as a music XML file. PDF is so I can actually download a PDF of this and print it. And then this is my icon for assigning, okay? And if I just wanted to open these scales in SmartMusic to display on my screen, then I would click the Open in SmartMusic. But right now what I wanna do is I wanna assign. So I'm gonna click the Assign icon, and then it's gonna take me through the assigner flow. So I'm gonna see the title right here at the top. And one very important thing is, here's one of the tips that I wanted to share. You can change the title of the assignment. Your assignment is going to be titled whatever the title of the music is, but you don't have to be married to that, okay? So you can change that. Right now it says movement from D major scales, compose default selection. That's too wordy. I don't want that. So I can just say D major scales created by me, if I like that. If that's easier for me to identify, right? Then there's a drop-down menu for the type of assignment. This is custom. And the reason there's a drop-down menu there is because some large ensemble titles, the majority of them, are also going to have some predefined assignments. So we have a drop-down menu so you can choose. I can say here, practice this scale and submit when all notes are green. Nothing is going to prevent your student from submitting before the notes are green, but there's a conversation you want to have with them about aiming for accuracy, right? And then you're gonna have here some parameters that apply to the whole thing. Do you wanna allow your students to use the metronome and the accompaniment if there's any accompaniment? Yes. Do you want them to submit with my part turned on? Generally no, because you don't want the microphone of the device picking up the sampled sound that SmartMusic has, so you leave that unchecked. How do you want the cursor to move? I'm gonna say any, just to allow my students to have some agency on what helps them best. Do I want the measure highlighted, yes or no? Is this gonna be a sight reading assignment? Not this one, so I'm gonna leave this turned off, but if I said yes, then I can decide how much time they're gonna get to do this. So this one will not be a sight reading assignment because I want them to practice and submit when it's all green. And then allow the type of assessment I want. So this is going to be melodic and percussive. I want to make sure that they get the right time, the right notes at the right time. And then how strict do I want SmartMusic to be when grading them? We have 4 levels of tolerance: easy, lenient, average, and strict. SmartMusic defaults to average, okay, but you can change it. I generally stay away from strict because it is very, very strict. When we first launched the web-based version, we only had 1 level, and it is that one we now call strict. And we got a lot of feedback from a lot of teachers saying, hey, no one can get that all the notes green. So I would recommend with your beginners, since the majority of you are middle school teachers, start with easy and then maybe move to lenient and eventually get to average. I'm just gonna leave it at average here, but just know that you can change that. After that, click the blue arrow button at the top right of the screen. And here's where you can customize your parts, okay? So at the very top of the screen, it says customize your parts, then there's same setup for all the parts, and then there's a custom setup. Right now, I set up the scales the way I like them. I know everybody's gonna get the same thing and they're gonna get it correctly. I'm just gonna use the same setup for all the parts, okay? At the bottom of the screen on the right side, below the sheet music, it's gonna tell me from what measure to what measure and from what beat to what beat. So it's starting on measure 1, beat 1, and going to measure 4, beat 4, but you could just do, let's say you wanted them to work first on the ascending part and then on the descending, you could do that, okay? And then the tempo, what tempo do you want? Is 100? Do you want it exactly 100? Do you want to do at least 80, for example? Or do you want to allow your students to play at any tempo so that they can do their best at whatever tempo they feel comfortable? Completely up to you, right? And then if you have further instructions, let's say at least 80, you can type your further instructions down below. When you're done, move on to the very top of the screen where the blue arrow is, and then you're going to click next. And here's where you decide how you're going to grade this. Your account may look different from mine because the only criteria out of the box in SmartMusic is the assessment grade, this one right here where I'm hovering over, okay? The assessment grade, which is based off the number of, the percentage of red and green notes that they get. All of these other criteria you see on my screen are things that I've created, and if you're interested in creating rubric criteria, you can click the plus sign and add additional criteria. If you do single level criterion, it's kind of like a catch-all. So you could say recording grade and make it a catch-all. And you're gonna assess that based on your professional knowledge and discretion of the quality of the recording, for example. Or you could be really, let's call this recording. I'm gonna call it recording 1 because I don't know if I already have a recording grade in there. Yes, I did. Okay, so recording 1, and if you make it multiple level, then you can be very specific and prescriptive, like you would be with a written rubric where you have, you know, for 5 points, you would do these things, for 10 points, you would do these things, for 15 points, you would do these things. So let's say that for 50% NA cannot hear the recording to evaluate. And then you could say for 75%, you could say, let's say it's 80%. 80% is proficient. All notes are correct, but tone is shaky, or whatever your description is, shaky. And then for 100%, it is perfect, and add your description. Okay, so you can create criteria like that, and then you could add that recording grade if you wanted to your assignment. So you could say 50 points for one and 50 points for the other, and then you're done. Click that blue arrow again. And you get this message that says template created. Your task has been successfully created. Do you want to assign it to your students? Not now, in which case it's going to go straight to your units page, or you can say yes, and then it's going to go straight to your students. So right now, you probably, I'm guessing because school already started, every assignment that you create, you want to schedule it now. But in the future, or if you're wanting to work ahead, you may create an assignment and not send it right away. You can say not now. Okay. Now that assignment is created based off your scales. And it's going to go here into your units page, and here it is. Okay, at the very top, I can create units, and then down below are my templates. Here's my D major scales created by me. So that was something created from Compose. Now I'm going to go here to my content manager, and I already had it pulled up, but I would go here and then click content manager. And so let me get there again here. And I have a sight reading outline that I built earlier today in D major. Here it is, okay? And I want to schedule this one as an assignment. So I go to my content manager and I want to say assign. And I'm going to select again custom assignment. And this one is sight reading. That means my students are going to get one chance only to do it. This is a one and done assignment. You will have time to study the music before performing it, and then it will submit automatically. Okay, automatically. All right. Here, just the metronome. I can say the cursor is going to follow the beat because I want to help you there. I'm going to highlight the measure so that you don't get lost. And then here's where that time drop down comes into play. Let's say this is the very first one. I'm going to give them 60 seconds to study the music, and then I'm going to make it really easy for them because it's the first one. I'm going to go on. Now it's not going to show me music on screen. It's based off of the parameters I had decided. So we're working on in D major. It's only going to have notes in D major. They're going to move. I decided on my parameters earlier on. So we're moving by step up to a fifth, and there's maybe some dynamics in it. And I just want accuracy. So I'm going to say assessment grade. This is worth 100 points only based off of the red and green note values that they get. Now, I don't remember what the name of the assignment was. Okay, so I'm going to go back here and call this Sight Reading Builder D major 2 string orchestra. I'm going to get rid of this default selection thing. Do this again, 100 points. Go now. And no, I don't want to do it now because I'm going to build a unit later. Okay, and now let's say I want to do a third piece here, and I want to schedule that Beethoven piece that I had looked at before. I have this bookmarked. So if I go here, actually I had bookmarked it right here. So if I have the music open in front of me, I can click assign. If I didn't have it open, then from find music, instead of clicking open, I would have clicked assign. And in my drop-down menu here, I have this predefined assignment. Okay, it says assignment 1, and then there's instructions on the right side with specific measures, specific instructions, etc. If I like this, I can go ahead and schedule it as it is. If I don't like it and I want to just do something else, I can build my custom assignment like I did before. But I do like this. Let's say I do like this these instructions. So I am going to put instructions here. Please practice and submit your best take. And I'm gonna make this lenient, and everything else looks good. I'm gonna move on to the next page. I didn't need to see the music because, well, generally you have the score in hand, so you can check those measures against your score. Let's say that this is based off of that red and green note assessment, and I am also interested in their dynamics, for example. So if I created criteria based on dynamics, I can add it here. And let's say I want to weigh that 50-50. So there's that. And then I'm going to click my next button. Again, my template was created. No, I don't want to assign it now because I'm going to build a unit. Okay. So there are my assignments. Let me get back to my presentation here. So I build assignment templates. I want to give you some tips and tricks. First of all, you can change the title of the assignment like I already mentioned, okay? Don't always go with whatever was pulled from the book, because when you get to look at your grade book later on, at a glance, if the title of the assignment was too long, it's gonna get truncated and you're gonna have to go hover on top of it to see the tooltip that describes the thing. So maybe figure out a labeling system that works for you, especially if you're sending a lot of assignments from your method book, okay? How do you label an individual assignment? Let's say, especially as you're building things into a unit, let's say that you're grabbing things from the Sound Innovations method book. You might want to put the initials of that method book at the very beginning of the assignment, or perhaps you want to have the line number of the method book be the first thing that shows, and then you would add SI at the end to know that it's from the Sound Innovations method book. Or if you're using Tradition of Excellence, you may want to put TOE at the beginning to know it's from that book, and then the number of the line, or vice versa. But figure out a labeling system that makes sense for you, so that when you go back to your templates or when you go to your grade book, you can tell what is what. There's a way also that you can duplicate assignments and make small adjustments. So if you have a piece of music with a tempo of 140, for example, and you want to first create an assignment at half tempo, okay? Create that first assignment, then duplicate it and edit the second assignment to make it 75% of the tempo, and then duplicate it and make that third assignment 100% of the tempo, okay? That's kind of a quicker way of doing it. And then lastly, if you're working off of a method book and you're wanting to schedule several different lines, it's a good idea to open a separate tab to the same Find Music page. So that would look like this. Let's say, let me get out of full screen mode. I'm going to have my, my Find Music page here. And I'm looking for sound innovations again. And I was in this string orchestra one. I can schedule from here as well, okay? So it was Mi Ranchito I was looking at before. It's gonna pull up in just a second. Here it is. Let's say I wanna schedule this before, and I'm gonna schedule several other lines from the book. Make a copy of this, copy this URL, open another tab over here, okay? And now when you schedule it, go back to the previous tab. Okay, now click Assign, make your assignment. I'm just gonna make this real quick. Whatever it says there, yes, 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 100, done, no, okay. It's kicking me back to my units, right? But I wanna go to another line of the method book. Well, I already had an open tab, so I can just quickly get to the next line. So that was that tip I was talking about, okay? All right, now we're gonna create units. How do we do this? It's really easy. Here's a quick video I'm going to narrate of how it works. So essentially, you're going to click on your navigation icon. You're gonna click on units. And then on the left side, you're going to click the plus sign and you're gonna label your unit. This one is called American Overture for Band. And then you're gonna save it. And then on the bottom where it says assignment templates, you're going to scroll down to find the desired templates you want to add to the unit. And then you're gonna click that little blue plus sign to add those templates to the unit. So in this case, this is a unit where the first 4 measures are first at 50% of the tempo, then a little bit faster, then at full tempo. And then there's some icons next to each assignment to edit the template, to delete the template, and to remove it from the unit. If you remove it from the unit, it goes back to your list of templates, okay? So it is really simple. You can delete the whole unit. If you do that, you don't delete the content of it. All of the different templates go back to the list. If you click Assign the unit, then you get to the last part of the assigner where you have all of the templates on the left side. And then you select the class. You don't have to schedule every single template at the same time. Okay, you can select 1 or 2 or all, and then you choose the class and the due date. One important thing to know is that if you schedule an entire unit, all of the assignments in it will be due at the same time. So if you build a large unit, when it's time to schedule it, you want to consider, well, do I want to overwhelm my students, with 7 assignments that are all due on the same day at the same time? So some examples of units that you may want to build may include a unit of scales and arpeggios. If you have a region or all-state etudes and scales that students need for their auditions, you could build units for that. You could build units based on rhythms and how you want your students to progress through the rhythms. You may want to build units with music that you rotate every 3 or 4 years and the exercises that accompany that those pieces. So here are some of those examples. Sequence of method book lines, repertoire rotation every 3 or 4 years, pieces of repertoire and supplemental exercises. I already talked about all of these things. Some tips and tricks for units. So they appear organized by the date of creation. So if I go to my units page here, where was I? Okay, so at the very top, my units, each one of these is a unit with the templates inside of it, okay? They are organized from the most recently created to the least recently created, okay? So at the bottom, I have a unit that I created December 21st, 2017. At the top, I have a unit that I created yesterday. Now, how to label the units? Well, it's entirely up to you, right? But find ways that help you remember what the contents of the unit may be, so that when you're finding it in future years or future semesters, it's easy for you to recognize and remember what's in it. If you're going to add lines of a method book to a unit, you want, line 3, then line 5, then line 7, then line 10, and you want them to appear in that order for your students. This is kind of a tricky thing, but you actually need to add them to the unit in reverse order. So you need to add line 20 first, and then on top of that, you'll add 17, and on top of that 15, and on top of that 13, and so on and so forth. So here's an example. If I build, here's my Sound Innovations for Band Book 1, and let's just remove all of these things from here, and then I'm going to add them again. Okay. So if I want to start with 125, I'm going to add it first, and then I'm going to add 99. It's going to go on top, and then 81. It's going to go on top of that, and so on and so forth. Okay. I want to add them like that so that they show up in the right order. When I assign them to my students, then if I say assign unit, and I select all of them to assign to, say, this class right here, they're all gonna go to the students at the same time. And it may take a minute. Oh, okay, I'm done. That was fast. Then here is one of, here's a student account. Let me refresh that page. Okay, and it was this class. Here they are in the right order, okay? So that's an important tip and trick. If you're adding lines of a method book and you want them to show from the smallest number to the largest number, add them in reverse order. And then I already kind of mentioned this, scheduling the whole unit versus individual templates. And this is up to you. Just think about whether or not you would overwhelm your students. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation, and I am gonna guess that there are some questions. So Michaela and Billy, why don't you guys let me know what people have been asking.
Oh, all right, we got a lot over here. I just wanted to point out really quickly, well, first of all, thank you, Giovanna. That was amazing. That was a ton of information and super helpful. I'm gonna drop a link into the chat box here. Smart Music Academy is a really
Michaela,
helpful...
you might be muted, I'm not sure.
Oh, can you hear?
Okay, I see a question. Can you edit your composition you made and composed after it's been assigned? No, you can't edit it after it's been assigned. You can edit it before, but once it's been assigned, you cannot edit it. Can you assign multiple assignments from a method book at the same time, or do we have to assign them individually? So you have to create each assignment for each line is an individual assignment. Once you have the templates created, then you can send them all at once. So it's a little bit of extra work on the front end, but once you have the templates created, then you can just schedule your whole unit. Another question here is, when assigning units, how do you make different dates for each individual assignment in the unit? So you would go to the unit, here, you would go to the unit, and you would you would say assign unit, but at the time of assigning, let's say it was this one. No, that has nothing in it. Let's say it's this one, okay? When you say assign unit, instead of checking them all, you would check one and schedule that one, and then you'd go back and check the other one and schedule the other one, and so on and so forth. And then another question is it possible to send exercises to students without assigning it to them to submit a grade for review? So yes and no. It depends. So if you want them to simply practice the material that you're sharing, you still need to create an assignment. You can tell them this is just for practice and don't submit, you know, to have them have that open and allow them to practice it. If you want students practicing from a method book without necessarily creating assignments, and that's an entirely different question, you would have to go here to your class tools, and you would select a class. Let's say that this class is where I just scheduled those assignments, and then you would go to method book at the top, and you would pin a method book to the class. So if there's nothing in there, you would click this blue arrow, and then you would select a method book that you want to pin to the student's class and save it. And then on the home page of that student, probably have to refresh this, I'm gonna see at the bottom right, I'm gonna see the method book that is pinned. They then can access the method book, practice all the lines, they don't have to submit anything.
Can you hear me,
right.
Giovanna?
Let's
Can you
see,
hear me
to
now?
pin the method book again, I'll show you one more time. So you go to the upper right corner, select class tools. Then you would select from the drop-down menu on the upper left, the class where you want to pin the method. And then at the very top, you cannot hear me? Okay, at the very top, you would click on method book. And then if you don't have anything in there, I'm going to reset it so it shows the way it would look for you. You would click the blue button, and then you would select the book, and then you would click save. And then it's pinned to the class.
Now that we're at the end of our session, I have a couple of things for you guys. In the chat, I am putting out a link to the certificate of attendance for today's session. Just a reminder, this link is only available to live attendees. It's not available for the replay attendees. And then also I have a, I'm gonna send it one more time. I sent it to the wrong person. All right, let's try that again. There you go, everyone should see it now. And then also a survey for this webinar. If you have suggestions of what you want to see for the future for webinars, if you have any questions, anything that we can address, if you could put that in there, it would be so helpful for us. And just a reminder for SmartMusic Academy, there were a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to today, that there are answers in SmartMusic Academy, which is super helpful, a super helpful resource in there. And then one more thing I'm going to send in the chat is a link to the presentation slides for this session. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Giovanna, for giving us so much information, and we will see you all next time.
You're so welcome. Thank you. And do check out SmartMusic Academy because there's a lot of information in there. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you all.